to give you a quick introduction, I know we're going to get into your businesses and what you do and the value you provide. And I know it's going to provide a ton of value for the founders listening, but you are founder of Half of Eight, and then your chair, you got your own Vistage Chair, which is really cool. I want to start actually, before we get into that stuff, with a post that I saw you did on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago.
Sure.
And the post led with, and I think this is very relevant to where we're at right now, and I think that's why you made the post, which is CEOs are getting mixed signals from this economy.
Indeed.
You said the Vistage CEO Confidence Index ticked up to 81.9 in Q3, but that masks a deeper split. Nearly half of CEOs plan to add workers in the next year. 13% are planning cuts. I want to get your thoughts on this and maybe have a deeper conversation on what's happening here. Because when I talk to business owners and CEOs, and even as I look at our business, there just does seem to be a hesitation the last few months. People aren't quite, they're right on the finish line, but I don't know, let's wait to see what happens, whether it's the tariffs, it's the government shutdown, it's the economy, whatever it is. There just seems to be a lot of balls in the air right now. And I'm curious what you see from interacting with a lot of other CEOs.
Yeah, that post is referencing a study that Vistage does on a quarterly basis across its US-based members. Vistage has 45,000 CEO members around the world.
That's a great set of people to poll for.
This is a big poll around people. And it's an index that measures their willingness to invest. How do they see the economy? How do they see things forward? And then, every quarter, new things would be researched specifically. But the trend is what matters. And the index has been identified as a leading indicator, 9-month ahead leading indicator of industrial production, which is in its turn a GDP driver.
What production?
Industrial production.
Industrial production.
In the US. So it's a leading indicator of the economy. When I review those results and when we see that dynamic that you're referring to, in which people are holding back, is there's a lot of uncertainty around many things, right? Tariffs has been this lingering item that people are not sure how to consider as temporary or permanently, making shifts in their business to adapt to that. Investments around people, investment around the economy. You're seeing a lot of debate around what's going to happen with interest rates, et cetera. That's making business owners not be certain about debt, not be certain about investment, not being certain about acquisitions or transactions, or even hiring. And I think the hiring element of this is interesting. The hiring aspect of this, in which people are holding back on making decisions on hiring, at the end of the day will have an impact. And small, medium businesses are your greatest engine of the economy. While we may talk about S&P 500 or Fortune 1000 companies, at the end of the day, the drivers of the economy of every small businesses are ultimately the flywheel that creates the economy going. So I don't see it as a red flag, but I see it as something worth keeping an eye on and making sure that as you're making those decisions, you understand what the general business environment is.
And I think it's another reason that we see the jobs report lagging, right? Where new jobs are not being created as fast as we'd like to. And sure, it hasn't hit the unemployment number yet, but if that trend continues, you got to imagine that's going to affect the unemployment number and bring it up.
And that's the economic element around it. The one that it's starting to be even more prevalent or more attention is what's the skill set shift that AI is going to be driving in the employment level. I mean, our new graduates going to have entry-level jobs available to them. What does that entry-level job look like? And companies that may before have fueled things with interns and fueled things or with early entrant employees, where are they going to fuel that? Probably with some AI. And how is that conversion going to create a shift in the workplace? That is probably a midterm concern. But the reality is, at the speed that AI is going, this might be sooner than later that we might see the numbers. We've seen many companies, large Fortune 100 companies, making announcements about job cuts or freezes or certain things. I think that's something I would be starting to pay attention to because it also has a significant ripple effect on the overall economy.
That's a good point. It's not only the uncertainty, but it's also that because of technology and AI, a lot of these entry-level jobs now, they're saying, well, I think we got a software. I think we got AI that can handle this. I don't know if we need to. I don't know if the game now is, is kind of, you got to hire a bunch more people to grow the company. And now it's like, maybe you don't have to hire a bunch more people, W-2 employees,
That's right.
to grow the company. Maybe we can leverage AI. Maybe we can leverage offshoring or things like that, or outsourcing, or whatever it might be. That landscape has changed. Let me ask you a question from talking to a lot of different CEOs. I was talking to my girlfriend about this yesterday. I was like, are there specific examples where AI is taking people's jobs right now? Have you heard of any?
You touched a point that is critical. Offshoring, I think, is the first one that we're seeing, the first indication. If you look at companies like Tata Consultant Services India, you look at Globant in Latin America, and you look at how they've transitioned these changes, they're really going through a big shift on employment. And these are the companies that major US companies have offshored either development or back office functions. So I think you're starting to see that in the offshoring world. We probably will see that coming into our economy around, of course, software development and things like that, on those elements that AI is completely autonomous at this point. And slowly it's going to take over other businesses. I was visiting with a company that is helping a CPA firm, a pretty large CPA firm serving the mid-market, and they're helping companies integrate AI into their business processes.
Smart.
And the number one view that they have is AI can simplify a significant portion of the bookkeeping, a significant portion of the auditing. As a matter of fact, auditing is not going to happen on a sample size basis anymore. It can audit every single transaction.
Right.
And as a result, it's liberating skill set to do strategic work in finance. There's
interesting.
Many small, medium companies have this challenge of, is my finance team, my bookkeeping team, I got to close the books, I got to audit them every month, or is it a team that helps me strategize around pricing, product, ROI of investment in sales, et cetera? And most of the time, they're being sucked into the day-to-day reporting and not able to do the bigger picture analysis. I feel like in some cases, yes, employment may be affected in some areas, but also will liberate other folks to bring in much higher value activities. In the companies I work with, medium-sized business, small and medium-sized businesses, what you find is that their ability to bring in AI is at the early stages of the development. They're not going to make massive investments of capital, right? It's really about integrating these tools in the day-to-day of certain functions or certain activities, or complementing it. At what point does it replace someone in small, medium businesses? I don't know. Because at the end of the day, this is on the margin for them. As a new development comes into how they do certain activities, maybe in marketing, maybe in outreach, maybe in software development, you might see some replacement.
Yeah, because I think what's happening is, like, new jobs aren't being created as much because of AI. Companies are using AI to be more efficient. But as I talk to founders and CEOs, and granted, I'm not the microphone for the entire world. There's a lot of people doing a lot of different things that I don't know about. But as I talk to a lot of founders from this show, and I never hear founders saying, we laid off 3 W-2 employees and replaced them with AI. That's not something I hear a lot about. It's more like, we're starting to use it more. We were going to hire somebody. We ended up stopping that just because of the climate right now. But also, we found a tool that can kind of help us do that right now, or we outsource, or we're offshoring it, or whatever it is. But I think, to your point, it's a matter of time before that probably is a reality.
Yes. On the other hand, when you've taken, in small, medium companies where you've taken an employee, you've made a significant investment in them. They don't fit a box. Right. In small, medium businesses, people tend to go outside of a job description, right?
Totally,
because the business evolves as time goes, and we adapt, and we take on more, and we figure out a way how to be most effective. Letting people go that have gone through that learning curve into figuring out really how we tick as a company, 50, 100 employee company, is not that easy of a decision, because you're letting go a lot of knowledge, institutional knowledge.
Right. You
don't have a lot of redundancies as small, medium business. These companies run at a very high efficiency level. So at the end of the day, I think that's less of a risk. But yes, hiring new positions, scopes of new positions, I think we'll see some impact around that.
Can I go back to you mentioned the outsourcing? Are you saying that the outsourced companies are starting to use AI and not have as many people? Or are you saying companies in the US are using less of outsourcing?
I think both things are happening.
Okay.
I think these companies, the ones where work was outsourced, are realizing I have to adapt. If not, I die.
Right.
So they're leading the edge and trying to build systems and processes for their clients onshore. And at the same time, the onshorers, the people who are offshoring, but the companies, the larger companies that are onshore, are in a sense trying to play both worlds, right? I'm offshoring some of this work, but could I insource it through AI? Could I have a greater sense of control and efficiency around it rather than offshoring it? I think you'll see both dynamics.
We saw it hit pretty big in the video editing world. I mean, even for this podcast, I've talked about it a bunch of times, but AI can go through and chop up all 3 camera angles, in 57 seconds. It can edit videos now. It's I would argue it's not as good as a good proficient editor from a short form video perspective. Like, it's not going to have the cool animations and this and that, but you could argue, do you really need that stuff in most videos? But I've seen it change. I've seen the landscape change, because I remember when I started making videos in 2019, it was like auto captions were new. It was like if you had to get a separate software to add auto captions, and now all the platforms have it everywhere for free, Right. And so, but now there's like companies like Opus Clip, where you can give a long form video or a podcast to, and you upload the raw video long form, and it chops it up. It finds the clips. Now, it's not going to do as good as a human, right? It's not going to be as good as a human, but you'll get a few clips that are decent, And then it'll even edit the actual video. It'll do the captions. It'll do the emoji, whatever you want in there. You can pick your style and fonts and things like that. And it's like, I would always tell my editors that start learning these AI programs and how to leverage them in your editing world, because if you don't, what's happening right now is a lot of companies are saying, well, do we really need to hire a video editor, or could I just use one of these software programs? And it's like, sure, if I want really high level good editing, maybe I use a person. But if I'm okay with like just kind of your basic editing, I'm going to use an AI software. And even if that reduces the talent pool or it reduces the need for the talent by 20, 30, 40%, you've now just got this wave of supply of video editors, and the demand is not nearly as high. And so everyone's fighting for scraps. And that's a tough place to be. And it's similar to like online shopping, where it's like people are like, oh, it's Kohl's, there's JCPenney, there's this and that. It's like people are going to want to come into the store. It's not about everyone not coming into the store anymore. If it's about 30 or 40% stop coming in the store and buying online, that could be enough of a dip that it affects the entire ecosystem in the business.
That is totally fair. So the challenge that video editor has, and I don't know enough about the business, but the way I would think about this is, as more and more of these tools are happening, they're getting served up some options, and they may add some quality control or adapting or manual. But at the end of the day, the larger part of the heavy lifting has been done by technology.
Right.
Where do they add value? It's all on the human side. It's understanding my client. What is the client really looking for?
Yeah.
What are these elements going to connect? How are they going to connect with people? How are they going to resonate better? It requires now a new level of emotional intelligence, another level of
storytelling,
adapting storytelling, finding the audience essence. That the AI algorithm may chase the larger scope of it, or kind of have an average view of it. The differentiation is going to be in the human value add that is really focused on the edges. Maybe even micro segments. I don't know enough about the business, but that's how I would hypothesize. And I think that's the challenge professionals have and companies have. We have to help our teams adapt to this. It's our responsibility. We've brought folks to work with us. We've taken on the responsibility of them, their families, etc. It is our responsibility as leaders to help them push through this change and not be resistant, and finding ways in which they can add value through elements in which the technology. And I totally agree with your point around, let's bring the technology to help you. Don't push away from it, and figure out a way how you adapt with it.
Yeah.
Because if not, if we sit here and wait,
it'll just replace you.
You'll be just replaceable.
Yeah. That's why I like that CPA firm deciding that's very forward thinking of them to go into a business and say, let's see how we can use AI to, this part of the business, and then what can the humans still need to do,
and it will be more sophisticated work,
and
more higher value added to the work for the business, right?
So what are you advising CEOs to do right now in the midst of all this uncertainty? I mean, when they want to, hey, I feel like I want to hire Christoff, but I'm not sure. We want to open up this new line, or we want to expand our business, but I don't know. It just seems kind of crazy right now.
Yeah. So the way we work, the way I work and a Vistage group works is, ultimately CEOs make their own decisions,
Yeah.
right? What they have is, because of the roles that they play in their companies, they have a limited amount of people who can provide a perspective that is not biased, right? Everybody around a CEO usually has an agenda, right? It's an employee, a consultant, an advisor, a board member, et cetera. So what we're trying to do is create an environment in which these CEOs have perspectives of non-competing businesses, very different businesses to themselves, and adding a lot of perspective around similar circumstances they have lived, similar environments they have had, challenging them through the coaching and the work in the room with other CEOs around what are their assumptions, why are they building those around, and helping them reach a decision around what is the right decision for them. Ultimately, they make their decision.
Sure.
So it's a difficult answer around, there's no one single bullet for anyone. But in general, the discussion when an issue comes to the table, and we process issues in every meeting with our members, is let's find all the facets around this and let's go beyond the surface. Let's understand the underlying motives. Let's understand what is driving these actions. What are your fears? What are motivations? What are the dynamics in your business that are different to the others? It's very interesting. At the end of the day, most of these issues are people issues.
Mm-hmm.
Either people issues that are in the way, or people issues that are going to enable.
Yeah.
That are going to enable the change, that are going to enable the activity. And when you have an environment of so much uncertainty, in general, uncertainty pulls us back. And a CEO in general has a good understanding of the environment and understands uncertainty. The teams that work for them in an uncertain environment, fear gets triggered, right? There is no predictability.
Yeah.
There is a sense of risk of status. There's a sense of risk of belonging. There's many elements around fear and fight or flight that get triggered around uncertainty. So CEOs and leaders in these organizations, a lot of the work we do is to help them work towards providing some degree of clarity. I can't tell you what's going to happen, but certainly I can tell you where we're headed and how we're getting ready.
Mm-hmm.
What does that storytelling look like? How do I create that to mean for you, stakeholder in my organization, employee in my organization, leader in my organization, to be prepared to pivot, to prepare to adapt? What are the early warning signals that I can get when these dynamics are shifting? It's not my P&L. It's not my cash flow statement. It's ahead of it. What are those dynamics? What are those conversations that I need to have with customers? What are those conversations I need to have with suppliers that are going to provide me the early warning system? Now, that early warning may be right or wrong, but at least it leads me to think, if this were to happen, what are the actions that I would take? Planning becomes a critical element around all this. And it not only provides the CEO paths, it's amazing how it creates an environment for employees to feel like they're covered, right? They may not know what's going to happen, but at the end of the day, at least they know there's a plan, and they trust their leadership in helping them drive that plan.
You mentioned Vistage Group. What is that for people that don't know what that is, and what's your involvement in that?
Sure. So Vistage is a global organization that's been in business for 65 years.
Wow.
45,000 members, 39 countries. They're the largest organization that works with CEOs and in mid-market, small and medium companies, to help them develop themselves and to grow their businesses. How do we accomplish that? We accomplish that through what we call peer advisory boards. Each Vistage member is a member. My CEO group, for example, is a member of a group local in the area that is a confidential environment where they meet every month in person to work through challenges, issues, and opportunities they have in front of them, both in the business side and the personal. This becomes a thought partner environment. In addition to that, they get assigned a chair. The chair facilitates the group, curates the group, selects the group, creates the agenda for discussion, and the chair also coaches them on a one-to-one basis every month. So the chair has a very good sense of what's going on in each business. The chair provides some guidance perspective, challenges, accountability, and then in the room the magic happens. In the room we have discussions, we bring speakers, we process issues, and in that environment, CEOs find answers that they wouldn't have found on their own, right? And they find support, accountability, trust that ultimately drives them forward. The average membership of a Vistage CEO is 8 years. This 8 years
Wow.
of membership. So many groups or many
That's
members
great retention.
stay 25 or 30
Yeah.
years. But in general, there's so much value they get out of this environment that they continue becoming and showing up for the meetings and being in person. Being in person creates a challenge, but at the end of the day, a tremendous value.
I was going to ask you, if someone were to ask you, what's the ROI of being a part of a Vistage group? What would your answer be?
I always go back to this 8-year average.
Yeah.
There is no number that I can give you.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Because it's each member derives the value. Staying in a group with that level of commitment, that level of attendance, it's not a gym membership that you show up or you
Right.
don't show up. You're taking a seat, a very valuable seat. The group is capped at a size. And you're the single representative of your industry. If you're not showing up, the chair has a responsibility to invite you to leave and bring someone to replace you. So that 8-year membership average is driven by the fact that these people are not only paying for their membership but actually showing up, because they're showing up for themselves and they're showing up for their peers.
Now, what would you say to someone that's like, why don't I just go find 8 other business owners and we meet for coffee once a month? What's the difference between what you guys do and that?
So first of all, CEOs are extremely busy.
Yeah. Oh, they are?
Yeah. One of the biggest challenges they have is, work-life balance.
Yes.
And now I've got to take on this responsibility of having an environment like that. That is totally possible. The reality is, in the way we operate, we will bring speakers that are curated by Vistage nationally that have that has content focused on this type of business that adds value and creates a workshop style takeaways. In addition to that, there's a dedicated chair that ultimately is curating the content, bringing the best minds, selecting the members to make sure that there's a fit, that they're adding value, they're challenging each other, and ultimately is driving that agenda at the service of the members. It's really hard to do that. I mean, for me, it's a significant portion of my time. I don't know how a CEO would run a successful business and do that at the same time.
It would fizzle out if you just had something probably casual set up,
and
or it wouldn't be as intentional.
Really, brain trust and things like that. But
Sure.
this is further. This is creating an environment that on and on is repeating and delivering to everyone as a whole, not just me, the CEO, that's creating this group of people that we're just thinking together, and then participation is voluntary, and there's a high degree of commitment around a Vistage group that drives the outcomes that they're looking for.
I think one thing you learn as a business owner and a CEO is that you have to, as quickly as you can, get around other people and be able to that are going through similar journeys, maybe a different path or whatever it might be, different industry, but they're trying to grow a business, a successful business, and they're going through challenges and pain points, and they're winning, they're losing, everything in between. And I think there's a tremendous value from sitting in a circle like that. And to your point, you're able to share what you're going through and get perspective from the outside. Not someone that is has any motivation necessarily, but just is there to help and support you. And it's unbiased, it's helpful, it's friendly. And then you're able to take that and say, 7 people today told me I should consider this. I should probably consider that thing, and then you can, of course, provide value back to the group, which I think for me is fulfilling. It's I enjoy that process
really
too.
rewarding.
Yeah. For you personally, how has it made an impact on your business and your life?
It's been transformational. I was a Vistage member, and my experience for 6 years being a Vistage member.
How long ago was that?
That was 7 years ago.
Okay.
For a 6-year period.
Okay.
And I was running a line of business in a very challenging business environment.
Is that United?
It was in Argentina. I was in charge of a United Airlines line of business.
Yeah.
And Argentina is a phenomenal country. Just wonderful people, wonderful food and culture and the like. It is also a very challenging business environment. And Vistage became my savior,
Really?
my group, my chair.
Why is it challenging? I'm curious.
It is very challenging because of the volatility of the market, the
Oh.
uncertainty in the market. It is an economy that is highly dependent on dollars and exports, and at the same time, it's a knowledge economy. There's a lot of professionals, high value professionals. So you have the ability to generate tremendous value, but at the end of the day, the economics, the economic environment can be very constraining or very development. High tax environment, high legal uncertainty, labor law is extremely challenging. So you're coming into an environment with all those constraints to operate, a successful business that works in many other countries. And at the end of the day, those you have to navigate, and you have to learn how to navigate that environment. And you can,
Yeah.
but you have to tap onto people that understand that environment.
Yeah.
That was, to me, that Vistage participation was phenomenal. So it was transformational for me as I was running a business. And then now it's incredibly rewarding. I get to go side by side each one of these CEOs through the journey of growth, through the journey of development, through the journey of pivoting, a strategy of new initiatives, and side by side walk their walk. They find their path as we talked. It's not, I'm going to give you the roadmap. I'm a consultant, and this is what you do. So they find their path, and I'm learning every day. I'm learning from them every day. I'm learning from their companies every day. I'm learning from the interactions every day.
Yeah. Same with when I do this. It's like, this is amazing.
It's probably very, very, very similar to that dynamic
Yeah.
in which you realize these folks, our group has selected the term for themselves, giants, and it comes from a quote that I'm going to get wrong, but it has this sense of I'm in a room where everyone feels like a giant and I feel small. Everyone sees each other as a giant in the sense of we have all this respect for each other. And at the same time, I'm humbled by being surrounded by this group. And I feel the same way about them. I feel by every single one is a great giant that has accomplished tremendously, is extremely vulnerable and willing to share and be there for their peers.
Do you think revenue is a good measuring stick for how good someone is at business?
No, absolutely.
Because the reason I brought that up is because I go back and forth. I don't think it is either, but it's interesting when you start. I was going to say, when I got around business owners that were doing not $1 million a year, not 500 grand a year, but 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 million a year, it seemed like the conversations changed. And like they thought a little bit more high level, and they thought about things that, just you wouldn't think about at 500 grand a year. And so I thought, man, there's this gap between people that have done it at a higher level. But also I've seen people that have their own business that are solo operators that are incredibly brilliant. And maybe they just don't want a big business because it doesn't fit their lifestyle. And I think that's one thing you got to kind of wrestle with as an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah. And you see this in the journey that founders go through scaling their business, right? When you're a founder, you've got a new idea, you've got a new concept, a new product. That's you. That's your identity. And then you start adding people to that.
Yeah.
And that's your founding team, right? And we all finish each other's sentences, and we all kind of know how we all are working. And all of a sudden, we're driving to some degree of growth, and we're being successful.
Yeah.
At some point, that plateaus because you have to bring more people in, or bring other suppliers or service providers we talked about outsourcing that bring tremendous complexity in the process. And you find founders plateauing at that point because what worked for them before doesn't work in this environment.
Right.
They no longer have a pulse of what every customer is thinking, what every supplier, what the market is doing, what their competitors are doing. That's filtered through the organization. And they're not getting, the more layers they're starting to get and the broader they're getting in scope, they're not getting all the information. Yet the organization continues to work the same way it worked before, and they stall because they can't fathom a world in which they don't make all the decisions, or they have such a degree of uncertainty or concern that they're going to fail. It's their identity, which at some point they've got this catch-22. Either I let go some control, I let go some decision-making, I let go some degree of autonomy so that I can boost, so I can go to the next level. You find this it's a critical transition point for many founders at scale.
But did you ever go through the period yourself of, I'm starting a business And then I think we all as founders realize, yes, we want to build this bigger company, W2 employees,
Mhm.
scale, scale, scale. Or we find ourselves, maybe we dabble in that. And but some other founders realize, I don't necessarily want that. Like I'm
Mhm.
cool running my business as me, small team. Maybe I have a couple offshore people. Have you wrestled with that or was it
I
pretty
have
clear?
recently worked with a client that has been working in an industry for in the same business from coming out of college, and has grown through the company to be the number two in the organization, has equity in the organization, and has the opportunity now to buy the business. He's been thinking about buying the business for 5 years. The more we worked on setting up the structure for him to better delegate, to better empower the team, to grow in the role as a leader, not as a doer. Fast forward that to decision of making and setting that up in a way that he gets work-life balance.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's actually reconsidering, should I really buy this business? Am
See,
I
that's
going to
what I'm
buy
saying,
myself
man.
another problem?
That's what
Am
I'm
I going to
saying.
I'm going to disrupt my work-life balance? And actually, to his credit, what was his vision of growing this business, changing this business because he's going to lead it, it's starting to come down to to realizing that's going to require something of me that I'm not sure I want to put into the next stage. Even though it's my business at that point, it's no longer my dream.
Well, I just think that as entrepreneurs, founders, we put a lot of our self-worth in our
In our
business
own
and the
business. It's our
success of our
identity.
business. It's our identity in a lot of ways. And I think you have to have the perspective of you're more than your business. You've got maybe family, friends, you've got hobbies, you've got, yourself as just a person in the environment that you're in and what you do to give back and what's fulfilling. But I think there's this, at least for me, and I'm curious about you, there's definitely been moments where I'm like, if my business doesn't grow to a certain level, what does that say about me? If I can't scale my business to 7, 8 figure, whatever that number is, what does that say about me? If my business and my identity are very wrapped up,
Mm-hmm.
and I look at like a business owner that $20 million company, and I'm sitting across from them, and I'm like, I don't feel like less than them. I don't feel like I even know
Right.
less about business than them. They may have other skill sets that are beyond mine, but I have certain skill sets that are probably beyond theirs. We can learn from each other. But it's an interesting perspective. I think for me, it's like I just want a different life
Mm-hmm.
than maybe they want. And I think it's easy to get wrapped up in I've got to
Very.
grow and scale, and that's just the only way. Otherwise, I'm a loser. Like
Uh,
if it's just me, what am I doing, right? And I think the reality is like I want a great lifestyle. I want to be there for my kids. I want to have plenty of money to be able to invest or do vacations or invest in equipment or whatever it is. I want to enjoy what I'm doing and do something that I love. But I guess I've come to the conclusion, and maybe this changes in a year or two. I don't know, Christoff. I've kind of come to the conclusion that like I don't want to build a $30 million, $50 million company. And part of me is like still holding on to like, but maybe one day, maybe you shift into something else or an offer comes or something comes up. The door is open on that. But as of now, I'm like, I kind of like what I'm doing. And I want to keep growing as a person and evolving my business, no doubt about it. And maybe we'll add a few more people and things like that. But that's a real thing that entrepreneurs go through.
it is, and it's great that it's happening. It's great that it's happening to you now, because what tends to happen is, as an entrepreneur, you're starting a business, and the dollar sign is important. You got to pay bills. You got to
Sure.
grow. You got to
Yeah,
invest.
definitely.
There are things that until you reach certain level of threshold, you cannot afford.
Yes,
You cannot
absolutely.
continue growing in certain ways, right? You're making cash flow decisions, right? Very, very short-term cash flow decisions. So the dollar number is a measuring stick of success. At some point, we got to let that go. We got to figure out a way as to, why am I in business? What is it driving for me? Around my values, my purpose. What am I here to do? What is my superpower? Why am I very different than anybody else in doing this? And how do I want to accomplish that? The sooner as entrepreneurs we figure that out, the sooner we're starting to take away revenue from the number one metric,
Mm-hmm.
and put it against a lot of these values and objectives and personal goals. And then it's not about others. It's about me. Am I accomplishing what I'm looking for? And I'm so glad to hear, like your case, coming to that realization earlier that many other entrepreneurs who, you may find people who have built a company, have their children. They're looking to pass it on to their children, and their children don't want to have anything to do with the business.
Right.
And now they're like, what's my legacy?
And what'd you
I've
do
spent
all of that for? What was the freaking
30
point?
years going after this particular objective and not realizing that now I have to sell my business to transfer wealth to my kids. But my legacy, I feel a void in my legacy.
And you missed all that time with your friends, your family, your kids, your
A lot of wealth
your
invested
health.
in the business.
You know, there's lots of things I see people give up to build this business, and I'm just thinking, is it worth it? I mean, I think for some people it is, and it's just like they're that's their only mode, and they just don't know anything else. But I've just ran to a lot of people who, as they get older, they kind of look back and go, you know, I really sacrificed too much to grow this business. But if they wouldn't have done that, they wouldn't have the business they have today. And then it's like they're kind of giving advice like, don't make those sacrifices. But it's like, but you wouldn't have the business you have today if you didn't make those. So it's an interesting topic.
It is, and it's also a generational dynamic as well, right? You know, I am the kid of the generation that had its certain values associated with what my parents went through. As a result, I'm trying to correct in certain ways or reaffirm certain things that I learned through the generation that was the parenting generation when I was growing up. So those values, those aspirations, those are formed by those. The generations that are behind me, that are in the workforce today, have seen their parents go through a very different path than the baby boomers.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, the way they value work, they value rewards, they value commitment, they value lifetime engagement is very different to the one that my generation did. And that's okay. That's really good, actually, because ultimately they get to decide much earlier in their journey what they're about and what is the rewards and benefits that they're going to go through. I mean, when I look at my children, the way they're making decisions is very different the way that I did, but I can't say it's wrong because it's very much aligned with where they want to get to.
You know what? I think life is a balance of, in certain points, putting your blinders on and not listening to anybody except for your heart and soul and what you really want out of life and your business and your family and whatever it is. And then the flip side is inviting other voices in and perspective in and having a good group or community or family to rely on and to say, you know, I don't have all the answers. So here's my situation. I'm kind of stuck between a couple different options. You know, have you been through something like this before? And what'd you do and how did it work out for you? And I think it's that balance, right? You can't go too much with just tunnel vision, but you can't go too much where you're just constantly, well, they got this, they're doing this, they're doing this. Why don't I have that? And it's like, that's too much.
It's the squirrel syndrome. All of a sudden, everything is a shiny object.
That's right.
And allow me to kind of agree with that, of course, and add in the sense of, yes, it's important that we do it for ourselves, right? We figure out what makes us tick. We figure out what our drivers are. It's also very important we do it with the people that work for us and work with us.
Yes.
We need to help folks find what makes them tick. What is the work that brings them joy? What is the work that drives their motivation and puts them in state of flow and environments of support? Because ultimately, the level of engagement, the level of validation, the level of commitment that those folks will have is tenfold.
What do you
and
say
it will drive the business. And even if it makes them see that maybe this is not the place I need to go, that is at their service. And many years from now, they'll realize, I'm so glad I had a leader that opened that door for me.
Yeah, I agree.
In that process. So it's self-reflection, but it's also helping others in our teams, in our environments, find that for themselves.
What do you say to the CEO or founder who says, I would love to go do something else. I'd love to go start another business, explore my passions, but my business is what pays the bills. It's my business is what drives the revenue. It provides for my family. It does all these things.
I think if the business is successful, if the business is generating free cash flow and generating returns, there's many options you have of setting that business, establishing a plan. It's not something you're going to do overnight, but establish a plan to drive your succession. It may not be your family. If it's family-owned business, can you bring management in? Can you bring someone that can shepherd that business for you and slowly transition that? One of my members in my Vistage group has run a business, created his business early on out of college. The business has been in business for 50 years. And at some point in this journey, he realized there's more to life than running my business. I'm going to hire a general manager to run my business.
Mm.
And I'm going to train them to run the business, and I'm going to let them manage the company. For 20 years, a general manager has been running the business. It's still his business, but he has figured out a way that this business is an autonomous entity that allows him to have the quality of life he's looking for, still be involved in the things of the business that he enjoys, and have a general manager to drive that. That requires a lot of humility. That requires a lot of patience. And at the same time, having the goal of, I want to set up a business that operates without me.
Right.
I think it's easier to do than what many people think, right? They're so engrossed in their reality that they can't see beyond. So as a result of having an environment of people that may advise or a coach or a trusted group of friends, something that help them see alternatives, pushes the boundaries for them to see another possible path. And as a result of that, they can start enabling it and pursuing that. I think that's very, very rewarding if you can figure that in your journey. And not feel hostage of your business, which is not a good place to be.
Yeah, I was just talking to I was at a friend's house, and good amount of people there. We were all just talking and having conversations around work and life and business and this. And one guy he's a doctor, and I was asking him, I was like, "Do you like what you do?" And he was like, "Not really. I don't enjoy it." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, what about it don't you enjoy? And we started having this conversation, and he goes, "It's a few different things." And he said, "To be honest, Alex, I just got into it for the wrong reasons." And I was like, "Damn, man." It sucks because now he's got a lot of things. He's got status, he's got this business with other employees, his wife's in it, he's got a house, mortgage, all these different things. And it's like, yes, he could probably figure out a path, sell the practice or do something else, but it's also, he's probably battling with this. Well, is the lifestyle going to change? Is it going to affect my kids, the mortgage, all these different things at play? But at the end of the day, it just kind of breaks my heart to hear that someone's doing something that they really just don't like, that doesn't get them out of bed and excited. And I know there's a lot of people listening that have businesses, and there's a lot of people that work for companies that I know personally that they don't enjoy what they do. And I'm a big believer of we've all got the, energy throughout the day, 24 hours throughout the day to do something with. I think it's just worth it to dedicate a certain portion of that to trying to figure out that next thing and what you're going to do. And it's not going to be easy necessarily. You're going to have to go through challenges. You're going to have to go through roadblocks. You're going to have to knock doors down. You're going to have to make sacrifices. But it goes back to that saying of like, pick your hard. You're going to go through challenges and you're going to struggle, and it's going to be hard regardless. So wouldn't you want to fight towards something that you really enjoy and are excited about? And, you left United, you've been in some bigger companies. I think you left in COVID, right? During 2021, it was your breakout year. Yeah, is that what you did? Yeah, nice. Okay. So you got the pension and stuff. Yeah, and then you got your own business. Perfect, right? But, I left my corporate job in 2020. It was like I came to a point where I was like, I just don't enjoy doing this thing anymore. And it doesn't fuel me up. I'm not excited about it. I don't want to climb up the company ranks. At one point I did. And I was just like, I want to go do my own thing. And it didn't happen overnight, but I said, this is what I'm going to do. And it was almost like naivete or whatever it was. It was just like bliss. I don't know what it was, but I just decided to go. And it was a little messy in the beginning, and then you start figuring things out. But I'm so glad that I made that move. And I'm glad my kids got to see that. Like,
that's so impressive for your children.
They got to see watch. Someone that went, and maybe they don't see it like that probably now, but they will see like, yeah, Dad went for what he wanted out of life. He didn't settle. He fought for what he believed in, and he took a chance. He took a risk. And I always try to teach that to my kids too. But I think they don't just, you don't just teach them lessons. They actually catch it from watching you, So
and they have to reach to their own conclusions
exactly.
their same way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of parallels as you were describing this of people going through a journey in which they believe this is what they're there for, because that's what they believe, what their aspirations were, what their parents were, what a vision of success was.
Yeah.
And as they go through the journey, they learn things that they didn't know before.
Yeah.
And new doors open up. And exploring them, I think, is our responsibility as humans. Explore them, study them, go through that. I mean, I enjoyed my corporate career. I wouldn't do it any other way. I loved aviation. I love the industry. It's just, the highest volatile industry in the world. Everything affects the industry. You always have to be thinking ahead of the
Yeah.
game. It's a low margin business, but it's really amazing about the people that make it happen. I loved it. At the end of the day, that was a chapter. And as I found coaching as a nonprofit activity that I was doing, some small businesses,
Interesting.
I started enjoying that more than my job.
Yeah.
And when you start realizing that you enjoy something more than the job, you either have to figure out how you make the pivot, or start spending more time doing that and less time enjoying the work. I mean, you still have a family to feed, and I was very fortunate to be able to have the runway to do that, and I don't regret it. I don't regret it at all.
Yeah. If I was a fly on the wall in a lot of these conversations where it's you and a bunch of other CEOs, what are the common maybe 1, 2, or 3 problems that have come up this year, aside from the uncertainty and kind of the outside influences? But what are some of the biggest problems that CEOs have?
Biggest challenges, I think it comes down to the basics. It's hiring, retaining, developing people. A
lot of founders I talk to bring it back to the people. It's all about the people.
Because, you can have the greatest visions, you can have the greatest strategy, you can have the greatest hack and, unique product in the market. But to drive the growth and the success is your people. So, managing people issues, motivating people, developing people is one. Boards, working with boards is another element that comes quite a bit. Figuring out how to work with them. They're necessary. They're important. But they have to be, it's critical that they have to be directed to add value, right? And I think many of the conclusions that we came about as we were discussing some board challenges is board members may not really know what their role is.
Interesting.
We need to help them define what their role is, what's in and out. Many times board members, there are equity board members, but many times they play a role of advisors, and they run their own businesses. Usually we bring them in because they have certain expertise. So they're getting in the weeds. They're trying to run this business the same way they do because that's their intuition. So helping them pivot to what the role is critical. And also understanding why they're members. Why they're board members? Why did you decide to be a board member in this organization? Yeah, there might be some compensation, but is it a status thing? Is it a reward thing? And how can we as a board, guess what? No different than employees, can help you achieve those through your board membership. And when I understand your motivation, when I understand your drivers, we can have some much deeper conversation that I actually would like to look at your cash flow statement. I'm not sure that, we are allocating the right amount. Is that really the conversation that needs to happen in the board meeting? So boards is another topic. And then succession planning, I think, is one that we've tackled this year quite a bit. And probably the biggest insight and debate we had is, as you identify your successors, do you tell them? Do you develop them? Do you tell the rest of the organization? Do you not? What are the pros and cons? And we ultimately reconciled it, and we have to double down on investing in our successors. And even if in the future we don't have the spot for them, we've done the right thing for them. And if they decide to leave, it's not because we did the wrong thing.
Right.
And most of the time, they'll decide to stay and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But not doing it because of the risk that they're going to leave us is the wrong thing for the organization and the success of the company.
Yeah.
But it's easy to say it as I've described it. When you start putting the emotions and the dynamics and the concerns leaders have around this, is you have to take that leap forward.
What would be the concern about going up to somebody and saying, hey, you've done well, you've been leading this department or unit, whatever it is, I'd like to talk to you about what's next in succession and things like that. What would be the downfall of that? There's
so much uncertainty around it, right? I'm talking about you succeeding me. I don't even know if I'm going to be here or not. I don't even know my plans are. Why am I having this conversation with you? I'm creating so much expectation that I don't even know if we can deliver on it or not.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, I don't even know if you will grow to be the person that I think you're going to be growing to be my successor. So it is an uncomfortable conversation of changing expectations. And that conversation may be okay, but then how is it going to impact the rest of the organization? If I make this public, what is the impact and motivation and engagement of the rest of the organization?
Mm-hmm.
As a result of now there's an heir apparent. Now
I heard
there's
Jimmy's going to be taking over the company.
So,
yeah.
each company culture is different.
Yeah.
Each environment is different. You have to think about all those things. But at the end of the day, don't be shy. I think the conclusion we ended up is don't be shy of leaning forward in driving a successor, because performance is going to improve.
Mm-hmm.
Their level of commitment, their level of engagement, their level of development is going to drive. And they may not be checking all the boxes for you. That's okay.
Yeah.
Let's have the conversation and work towards checking all those boxes, or complement them with people who check those boxes. At the end of the day, a founder built a company ideally around complementing them.
Yeah.
Their successor doesn't need to be a copycat of them.
Right.
Their successor is going to be some similarities, some differences, and then the team they get to assemble for them is going to have to complement them, not the old me.
Yeah.
Right? There's
totally.
a lot of perception of leaders in the succession discussion is which my successor needs to be like me.
Yeah.
No, my executive team needs to be if I'm a successful leader, my executive team needs to be like this executive team. How I bring those pieces together is different.
Mm-hmm.
And letting go a little bit of that and letting that flourish creates so much opportunity.
I'd always rather have the honest, transparent conversation than not. That's always how I look at it. Is it better to have the conversation, open, honest conversation, or to just brush it on the rug or not tell someone? And I think in most cases it makes sense to have an honest conversation. The gig economy. I hear a lot of people and business owners even talking about how the 9 to 5 is about dead, or it's dying.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of more people that are stepping up and doing gig work, and they're owning their own business, solopreneurs, that kind of stuff. What is your take on that? Do you think the 9 to 5 is dying? Do you think we're moving into? I mean, the numbers do show the gig economy is on the rise, but I'm curious if you believe that's happening, and what does that mean for companies that need all these employees and leadership teams and things like that?
It hasn't come up with my clients. Probably because of the scale of the size of the businesses they're leading, and the high degree of full-time employees they have on their payroll. It is an interesting point. I feel like people need to drive their aspirations and achieve their outcomes. And if having an on-the-side gig helps me, that doctor, for example, right, that you were referring to, if they find some passion around building some other small business, why am I going to stand in the way as a leader for them to accomplish that? As long as the goals are clear, the deliverables are understood, et cetera. And if I can make accommodations or I can make concessions around the way we work, and you're delivering your results, the results we expect, and you're showing up and you're committed, but at the same time, you're developing other styles. Today, the beauty of the gig economy today is we called this hobbies before. And there was no money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, when I had a hobby, I was coding.
Yeah. Wow.
As a hobby.
Yeah.
Today, I probably, if I were rewind 30 years back to today, I still would be coding, but maybe I would be selling those services in some sort of platform, right?
Right.
Well, maybe not now with AI, but a couple of years back.
Yeah. No kidding.
So I think we call them hobbies today. It's, a way in which we do what we like and we get some revenue return. That's how I would kind of start the conversation around it, but it hasn't come up.
Yeah, it's always interesting because I'm like, I obviously there's been more entrepreneurs, more people doing gig work, but some of that AI will, like, robo taxis. There'll be no more Uber drivers at some point because they're just going to be safer drivers than humans. Humans are make crazy mistakes and are emotional and they road rage. It's like
road rage.
AI. If you've ever been in
no one is guilty of road rage, but we see it every day, right?
We do. We've never done it ourselves, but we've seen it. That's exactly right. What's that car company that I'm thinking of that drives itself? The Waymos.
Yeah.
If you've ever been in one of those, I mean, it's incredible.
It's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
My girlfriend was skeptical at first, and we got in. I said, "Let's give it a try." After a few rides, she's like, "This is awesome. I don't want to ride with a human again." it's just safer. It's just safer. You know what I mean? Like it just is. And so I think that there would be things like that. But I also just always go back to like, well, if everyone's doing a gig or their own thing or their own business, then who's going to work at the companies? And I think like, I don't know. I don't think everyone's meant to do their own thing either, or they want that responsibility, or they want to, because it's, you go off on your own. You've got to deal with sales, marketing, accounting. Everything's kind of under you, or you're going to build a team around it. I don't know if everyone wants that.
Not everyone's entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you think that's born, or you think
I don't think that's born. I think
you don't think an entrepreneur is born? You think it's made?
An entrepreneur is born? Yes. I don't believe we're all born with entrepreneurial mindset or desires. We are born with a need to belong. We are born to be part of a tribe.
That's right.
And through history, where we work was our tribe. What we do as a job was our identity or a status. If we migrate to kind of hourly work that really is doing it for someone on a white label environment, that someone's selling the product and it's really not me, and it's measured on stars on my rating. I mean, I'm not sure how much that scratches the itch of belonging or status. This is who I am. Actually, I will take the other side of that argument to say, I think companies are here to stay. I think the environment of belonging and driving jointly as a team towards certain outcomes scratches the itch for many people and drives how they tick. It did for me for many, 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 many years. So I think the beauty of this is there's room for many folks in different perspectives and different styles.
Yep. Last part of the segment is called the Invested Founder. It's a new segment I've added where I talk about, and whatever you're willing to share, but I basically ask founders, you're making money from the business. Are there any other areas that you're putting the money or the profits, investments, and things like that are helping you generate more wealth for you, family, generational wealth, things like that? Is there anything specifically that you're doing from that standpoint that you're willing to share?
Yeah. So at this juncture of my business, I'm developing my business.
Yes.
Right? So it's in the earlier stages of my practice, where the things that I believe drive tremendous opportunity to drive wealth forward. I'm a very conventional investor. I have my financial advisor. We talk on a recurring basis. We look at options, etc.
Yes.
I do feel like there is something that I would like to pursue, which is, given the path that I've taken, I start seeing people who are extremely intriguing around a business idea or a path they want to take. And it's easy for me to take a bet and say, hey, let's, happy to work with you. Or, it would be amazing to say, I'd be happy to invest. I have to figure out the conflict of interest of coaching somewhere where I'm invested. But I think that's where I would take this further if, once
I like that.
Once the flywheel starts, seeding and helping, a founder-led economy where I see people that have the skills, the talent. I don't know anything about their business, but we can figure out what a leader you're going to be and how you're going to drive through this uncertainty. And if I were able to make those bets, I think I would be excited to do that.
Yeah, I would too. I think especially if you have equity or a part of a business or you've invested in it, I think you're more motivated, obviously, to make that thing successful, right? So I see it as a good interest, not necessarily a conflict of interest.
Yeah. Yes, I see the responsibility of the coach of not driving an outcome.
I see.
As a responsibility of a coach, I help you explore things and see them for yourself.
Sometimes that advice or that exploration may not be driving more revenue.
We need to go through this to get to the other side. Right, or you may choose not to go through that path and decide if I'm invested in the business, maybe I'm not as objective as or it's the word maybe it's not objective, distanced from the outcome as I should be as a coach.
That's a really good perspective. Christoff, I really appreciate you coming here and doing this. This is a great conversation, man. I really enjoyed it. Where can people reach you, find you, connect with you, and maybe tell people about Vistage? I don't know if there's opportunity to join your chair, your group yet, but if so, maybe give me a little perspective.
So a couple of points. So yes, my group is in growth mode, and we always are looking for the right leaders. It's a mutual fit assessment. The reason the groups are so successful is that we take very seriously who comes in, right? This is a very safe space. People who are willing to be vulnerable, people who know they have to put people first and make people feel like they belong, are willing to challenge themselves and others and be accountable.
Important. Yeah, that's important.
And be accountable to others.
Yes.
So, not everyone fits that mold. It's not good or bad. It's like the model requires folks to fit that perspective. So we spend a lot of time of exploring fit, mutual fit. They have to be also willing to work with me right. For us to click. So happy to engage with folks that may be interesting and they want to learn more, of course. I also want to learn about them and explore fit for the group.
Yeah.
In addition to that, my website is half-of-8, the word 8.com. There's information about the Vistage group, about my private practice and coaching activities, subscription to my newsletter, monthly newsletter for CEOs and business leaders, and some articles and activities that I publish that provide some perspective, and also on LinkedIn, of course.
Yeah.
I as you saw,
Yes.
I'm active in LinkedIn and enjoy that quite a bit.
Why is it called Half-of-8?
Half-of-8. It comes from a book of called How to Listen. There's an anecdote in the book of a mom having a conversation with his little kid in the backseat in the car. Hey, Johnny, what did you learn today? And Johnny learned that the half-of-8 is 3. And we learned half-of-8 is 3. Mom, no, Johnny, half-of-8 is 4. No, Mom, half-of-8 is 3. And this goes on and on and on. And for me, it was 3. For someone else was 4. For someone else was 0. And the mom comes to the realization that how the kids were processing the half-of-8 was visual, was math, was a different perspective. And depending on how you look at the half of a number 8, you can come up with many answers to that. And what I like about that is, in coaching, we have our answer.
Yeah.
And we go into a coaching session or a coaching engagement or a group like a Vistage group, and all of a sudden you have different answers to the same problem. And now we get to pick. Is half-of-8 3? Is half-of-8 4? Is half-of-8 0? So I thought it embodied a lot of the perspective growth that happens in our practice.
Very cool. I figured there was a meaning behind it. So, Christoff, thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure. My pleasure for being here. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Alex.